All right, guys. So while we're on the topic of authoritarianism today, right, this story right here is a classic example of what happens when you buy into the left-wing authoritarian ideology, particularly when it comes to this gender conversation around pronouns and what you can and can't call people, right? Now, this is something that the great Jordan Peterson had seen coming for years, right? When he initially got in trouble for saying that he refuses to use people's preferred pronouns, particularly when forced to do so by the government. Now, that doesn't mean that he's against preferred pronouns per se. It just means that, hey, I should not be forced to use a pronoun or to call somebody something that I simply don't want to call them by the government. And that the government doing this is very, very, very dangerous, because once the government starts to police speech, right, and decide what people can and can't say, that is a one-way trip to an authoritarian state, right? That's what he said. And back then, that was a huge deal, right? That basically propelled him to mainstream fame. And, 5 or 6 years or so later, right, that was 2016, today is 2021, we're seeing some of the things that he warned about. As a New Hampshire high school student sues a district and principal after he was suspended for saying there are only 2 genders on the school bus and in text messages with another student. All right, so let's read here about this student and them suing the school for their censoring of his First Amendment rights. A New Hampshire student athlete and his mother are suing the school district after he was suspended from a football game for expressing his view that there are only 2 genders. The freshman student, only identified as MP in court documents, was discussing the difficulty of addressing a non-binary person in Spanish with his friends on the school bus when another student interjected to argue when MP replied, "There are only 2 genders." All right, so I think, when it comes to Spanish, right? That's a gender language, okay? The woke revolutionaries are actually trying to take that out of it, right? That's why they changed Latino/Latina to Latinx, right? Latinx, so they can get rid of it, okay? But, anybody that knows anything about Spanish knows that it's impossible to speak Spanish in a way that's coherent without incorporating gender. But again, the woke revolutionaries, they want to change the world, right? They want to change everything they don't like. And language is on the top of that list. After a short discussion on the bus, the students engaged in a debate over gender and sexuality in text messages. Those messages were turned into school administrators who suspended MP for not respecting pronouns. Jesus Christ. Student got suspended for not respecting pronouns. Crazy. The lawsuit filed on November 4th in Rockingham Superior Court and obtained by DailyMail.com said that the 1-game suspension of the student in September was in violation of the student's constitutional right to free speech and the New Hampshire Bill of Rights because he expressed his religious Catholic beliefs. Ding, 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 ding. 100% agree with that. It is a violation of people's free speech, right? You have the right to call people what you want to call them. Now, does that mean that you should just be calling people things outside of their name? No, absolutely not, right? Like, you shouldn't just be disrespecting people, okay, and calling them things that, they probably don't want to be called. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be forced to call people things that they want to be called, particularly when it goes against people's religious beliefs and biology, right? Just because somebody wants to be referred to as a he or a she, that doesn't mean that I have to refer to them as a he or a she, especially if their biology doesn't line up. If my worldview is different than their worldview, in the sense that, because of religious beliefs or whatever, you just don't believe in calling people a pronoun that doesn't fit their biology, right? It's pretty simple stuff, okay? And there's those people who have the right and freedom to call them by that, and if they want to call them by that, that's fine, right? I'm not opposed to that. I would be in favor of banning people from calling people by their preferred pronouns, just like I would be in favor of forcing people to call people by their preferred pronouns. But again, the authoritarian left, they want to force people to do that, right? Instead of leaving it up to individual choice. The student is seeking nominal damages against what the lawsuit defines as New Hampshire School Administrative Unit 16, a New Hampshire school district that includes Exeter High School in Exeter, Rockingham County, and Exeter School Assistant Principal Marcy Doholuk. MP is also aiming to stop Exeter High School from continuing to enforce its gender non-conforming students policy because of what he says is an infringement on his First Amendment rights. MP and his mother are being represented by Ian Hewitt of Cornerstone Action, a non-profit Christian advocacy organization. They believe the school district policy essentially penalizes students for their religious beliefs when they refuse to address non-binary students with their chosen pronouns to describe their gender identity. Quote, the student does not deny that he violated the gender nonconforming student policy, the lawsuit states. He in fact denied and will continue to deny that any person can belong to a gender other than that of male or female. The student will never refer to any individual using plural pronouns such as they, using contrived pronouns such as Z, or any similar terminology that reflects values which the student does not share. Well, kudos to him for standing up for his own personal values, right? And saying that, you know what, I will not conform to something that I simply don't want to conform to when it's in violation of my First Amendment / freedom of speech rights. The high school enacted a progressive policy in 2016 whereby a student has the right to be addressed by a name and pronoun that corresponds to the student's gender identity. But the policy also contains a provision that the intentional or persistent refusal to respect a student's gender identity is a violation of this policy. Okay, so again, my question is, why the hell is this policy even a thing in the first place? Right? I mean, we have kids that can't read. Okay? We have students that can't read. But yet these schools are wasting time and resources implementing policies like this that quite simply are just there to coddle a very, very, very small minority of students. And it's also virtue signaling as well. Because none of the people that actually made this policy actually believe this stuff. Right? I wonder, did they address the science teacher? Right? Did they address the science teacher before making this policy? Right? Did they ask the science teacher that, hey, you know what? Are there more than two genders? Right? Do you think there are more than two sexes, biological sexes? You know, do you think that this actually matches biology? Does this actually follow the science? Right? But see, what the left has done is that they have perverted this conversation about sex and gender. Basically to say, well, gender is what you identify as, sex is biological. But they're actually starting to mix the two up to try to blur the lines even more, to try to say, no. Somebody that is trans, right? For example, a man that wants to be a woman is actually a real woman, a real biological woman, right? They're going as far as to try to make it so your sex now has to correspond to what you want your sex to be, not necessarily what you were born with, right? That's what they're doing, okay? They're trying to blur the lines even more. And that's what happens when you give the left an inch. They eventually try to take them out. That's what they do. The lawsuit describes how a teacher in the student's Spanish class asked students to introduce themselves. One student informed the class they considered themselves to be non-binary and wanted to be addressed by they as a singular pronoun. The suit then details how MP later chatted with friends on the school bus over the complications of using third-person pronouns when they refer to themselves in Spanish. The third-person pronoun to refer to a group of men is ellos, but referring to a group of women, it becomes ellas. The lawsuit details how a female student identified as AG overheard the conversation and told her friends there are more than two genders. To which MP responded, no, there isn't. There are only two genders. After MP got off the bus, he was texted by the student who had confronted him on the bus. She pressed MP on the topic of gender, demanding, give me one valid reason why there are only two genders. The lawsuit states the two then had a contentious exchange of texts on the issue. The lawsuit states it was those texts which were handed over to the school administration that resulted in MP's suspension by reportedly both failing to respect another student's gender pronouns and for inappropriate language used in his text, such as bozo and STFU. Hey, what? Okay, so they suspended the man from the football team because he told the student that she's a bozo or said something like that and told her to shut the F up. Right? Because he spoke the truth. Right? Because he spoke the truth. Yeah, this stuff is absolutely insane, man. Absolutely insane. The left will swear up and down this is not happening in schools. The student now suing the school was pulled out of his early morning science class by Dohavec and athletic director and varsity coach Bill Ball. Dohavec and Ball stated that the text showed that MP was not respecting pronouns and that he needed to respect how people identify, the lawsuit alleges. Ball told him he was going to suspend him from playing football for a week, but then reduced the ban to 1 game after his mother protested that MP had done nothing wrong. According to the complaint, the football coach replied, "I know, but times are changing." Again, when you say stuff like that, that's how you get the left all the ammunition that they need, right? Because we're moving into Looney Tunes world, right? I'm not against progressing on certain issues in society, right? I'm not against that. What I'm against is progressing in a way that is, one, actually regressive, and then two, that goes against reality. That's the actual problem, right? That's not progress. That's confusion. And that's what a lot of these people actually want. They want confusion. MP claims through the lawsuit that his punishment in using the school's policy for gender non-conforming students was a violation of his First Amendment rights and a violation of the New Hampshire Bill of Rights. He also believes staff at the school did not have the authority to punish him because his text messages were from an off-campus conversation that was started by another student. Regardless of what defendants may think about these words, MP did not use profane or insulting language towards any person while in the school building, on a school bus, doing school activities, or on school property in any of the events leading up to the athletic suspension and this case. DailyMail.com was directed to the superintendent when reaching the high school for a comment. The superintendent did not answer when reached via phone for a comment. So far, the school has not commented on the case, with SAU 16 Superintendent David Ryan issuing a brief statement. Quote, "We are in the process of reviewing this complaint with legal counsel and will be able to share a statement once we have completed that review." All right, so this is the lawsuit, guys. You can see this. And honestly, I can't even believe this is real. But I can believe this is real because it's 2021. And again, this is something that the great Dr. Peterson, Jordan Peterson, warned us about a long time ago in terms of what would happen with this gender pronoun nonsense. And lo and behold, we have this happening. We have students being kicked off the football team, or put it this way, being suspended for a game because he simply stated that there are only 2 genders, right? And for his refusal to use pronouns, right? Again, this is the type of authoritarian stuff that is currently in our country, guys. This is what it is. And a lot of it comes from the left. And controlling speech, censorship, is a primary way of exerting control and power over the population in regards to what is okay to think and what is not okay to think. And if you go against that, then you will be punished. So I hope this student wins the lawsuit, and I hope that he gets paid, right? I hope he gets paid. But most importantly, I hope that this can help reverse some of these policies that are being implemented in schools and challenges this stuff legally on grounds of a violation of freedom of speech. Okay, I hope that that's the direction that this is headed in to help counter reverse a lot of this woke nonsense being implemented in schools. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.